Hey, before you get into the video or the podcast, whichever way you're listening to this, I should probably just give a bit of an explanation. I've been really busy lately, so much so that I had a chance to record my thoughts on episode 1 and 2, but didn't have a chance to edit it before episode 3 came out. So basically, my discussion on episode 1 and 2 is separate to my discussion on episode 3, and because of that, I might say things in the first 2 episodes discussion that are answered in the 3rd episode. But, you know, I guess that way you're getting a very natural reaction to the whole thing. But just so you know, I'm not that bad. My memory isn't that bad yet, but you know, if you do want to hear a discussion on a specific episode, there are time codes in the description. And that's all I have to say. On with the show. Welcome to The Watcher. I'm your cult leader, Tom Pot, and I just watched episode 1 and 2 of Miss Marvel, and I'm very late on this. I totally get it. I wasn't sure if I was going to do The Watcher for Miss Marvel, because it kind of felt like a show that probably doesn't open itself to a lot of interpretation necessarily. It just seems like something I was going to think and watch and enjoy, but it's a character I really like, so I kind of last minute decided, hey, maybe I will actually do these. I don't know if I'm going to do one for every episode, so I'm going to do the first 2 at least together, because I kind of didn't have a lot to say about the first episode. There is some stuff to dig into, but I kind of feel like it's a show that is just really accessible and entertaining, sir. My God, I really am rusty. You can tell it's been a while since I've done a video. But yes, this is a show that I would say is probably one of my most anticipated of the MCU shows. I love Miss Marvel and the Kamala Khan character. I think she's so great. I just find her, she's like, of all the kind of new characters, new spins they brought on characters, I think this is one that has really stuck. And this show is certainly helping its case. I loved the first 2 episodes. We're going to go through episode 1 and 2. If you're thinking, hey, I've already, had my fill of episode 1. We're into episode 2 now, and you want to jump ahead, there's a time code in the description. And while you're scrolling down, give this video a like. Oh, I feel dirty. Hey, I'm not the only one making YouTube shit though. So is Kamala Khan. And man, if a character is ever relatable, she was certainly relatable to me in that she makes nerdy content on the internet, doesn't get a lot of views, doesn't have a lot of subscribers. Me and Kamala, baby. I should say as well, this episode is called Generation Y, which takes its name from the 2nd graphic novel collected edition of Miss Marvel, from that new run where Kamala Khan was introduced. This is a very faithful to the comic for a lot of reasons, a lot of visuals, a lot of the story elements. So if you're enjoying this and you want to pick up a comic, you could not go far wrong by picking up No Normal for the first volume of Miss Marvel. It's fantastic. But yeah, she's doing this cool kind of stop motion recap of Endgame. What I really loved is I saw people straight away, because some people had the daggers out for this show before it began. Oh, I wonder why. But straight away people were like, oh, how does she know what happened during Endgame? And it's pretty much addressed the fact that, there's podcasts. Scott Lang is apparently doing podcasts. And there's details out there of what transpired. And of course, that's why she hears about Captain Marvel, who of course massively inspires her. Scott Lang just doing podcasts apparently. I love how Scott Lang is just kind of the scrub of the Avengers. They're like, look, you can't get Thor to do a podcast, but yeah, Scott Lang will do a podcast. Go on. Come on my podcast, Paul Rudd. You can do it in character if you want. You can play that Mac and Me clip that you always trick Conan with. I'll be a good sport about it. Of course, we should mention Captain Marvel. A lot of people don't seem to think she has abandoned Earth, which is fair enough, because she was basically not around. Then she saved the world and then was like, bye, went off to space again. Pretty reasonable. But it doesn't deter Kamala, who loves Captain Marvel and intends to dress up as her and go to Avengers Con in the big city, New Jersey. No, that's right, we're not in New York for this one, which is a lot of fun. I like that kind of, we're already getting the kind of little brother syndrome of the New Jersey-New York relationship, and it's just nice to have a different change of pace. But yeah, New Jersey, man, land of Snooki and Sopranos, and now Kamala Khan. Which is, I don't know, is she a cross between Sopranos and Snooki? Not really, but if you wanted to market the show, I guess you could just say that and people might watch it. And you should watch it, because it is quite good. I'll tell you what you should also do. Put your belt buckle on and be safe, because Kamala Khan is not a very good driver. She's taking a driving lesson. This is like how our show starts. This got a laugh out of me, I have to admit, even though it was such an obvious joke. But she backs up into a parked car and goes, okay, I don't think anyone saw. And then the driving instructor's like, that's my car. It's like, you should have known that, Kamala, come on. But hey, I got a laugh out of it. And now we need to go all Encanto style. Well, we need to do the opposite of Encanto, in that we need to talk about Bruno Carelli. who is Kamala's bestie and quite clearly fancies the pants off her. But yeah, she doesn't seemingly feel the same way, or is just oblivious to it. The show, I should say as well, has a really great visual style. Like, it looks fantastic. It's nice and colourful. It's very appealing to the eye, but also has a really good like animation and effects kind of style that is not subtle, but is very interesting visually. So like when they're getting text later on, the text are like built into the background. Like thoughts are built into the graffiti and all that kind of stuff. And it's cool. It does fit the whole daydreaming aspect of the Kamala character, which is very evident in this show. And I really enjoyed it. It keeps the show visually interesting, even when it's just, you know, expository dialogue and that kind of thing. We see her school, which is Cole's Academic High School, again, totally taken from the comic. And we also get who has founded the school, which is basically all the co-creators of Miss Marvel and then some other people who also worked on Miss Marvel. G. Willow Wilson, Stephen Wacker, Adrian Alpoha, and Jamie McKelvey are all credited. They all co-created Miss Marvel. Interestingly, Sana Amanat is not on the plaque. I think it's because she, even though she is a co-creator and one of the most prominent ones, I think she is involved in the show very directly. I think she's a producer on the show. So maybe people would be like, it'd be weird if, you know, it'd be like if like Kevin Feige was, they were like, oh, this school was funded by Kevin Feige. We're like, we know that, we see that in every Marvel movie. Obviously, that's an Easter egg. So maybe they're hoping to do a bit more digging. There's other names there as well. All these people have had work on Miss Marvel and Marvel in general. But yeah, we get the deal. She's a high school nerd. You know, it's like Spider-Man, and I will say this is a character that is very much like Spider-Man, which is great. I think she's kind of like Spider-Man for a more modern generation, maybe. That's definitely how they sold it. It wasn't Snooki Meets Sopranos, it was Spider-Man for a new generation. But yeah, she's, you know, straight away high school, we meet Zoe Zimmer, who's kind of a character who is sort of the bitchy mean girl type. She comes off as nice, but she's overly nice and kind of mean as a result. Like in the comics and other times, she's kind of like really kind of racially insensitive at times, and I don't know, she's just a kind of a bitchy character, but well played here, definitely. But we do meet, my God, a character. Never before is there a character I've just loved straight away, because this is a character like I feel like I've interacted with in my real life, which is Mr. Wilson. But don't call him Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson was my father. His name is Gabe. He's like the principal, I guess, and he's just so like, you know, the cool teacher who's just like, hey man, I'm just one of you guys. I could easily be on the other side of this desk, dude. You know, and you're like, oh man, this guy's so lame. But yeah, he's basically like, hey, you're not focused at school, and you seem directionless. Which, yeah, she does from what you've seen. We get a lot of animations here. Bit unnecessary, but again, keeps the story moving and is quite interesting to look at. This is the moment where we get the origin and the source of her powers, which has been a massive source of controversy. They go through a box of her grandmother's stuff, and they find a bracelet that is kind of enchanting, and it's a bangle, I guess we should call it, instead of a bracelet, and they put it back in the box and put it back up in the attic. We'll get to the bracelet a bit more in a minute. Again, it is a controversial one, the powers in this, but I'll kind of give my thoughts on it in a minute. I don't know if it's surprising or not how I feel about it, but I think it's I think it gets a bit of unnecessary flack. Again, I think that, like, I do think there were people who had the knives out for this show, and as soon as they found something like that wasn't faithful to the comics, they were like, yes. And again, it's been so faithful to the comics in other regards that I don't think it should bother anyone. But she does have a costume, and she wants to go to Avengers Con. Now that costume is a Captain Marvel costume. It's a really cool Captain Marvel. You know, it's the helmet and the mohawk kind of look. But straight away, her parents, God, do I love her parents. They're so hilarious, and so they feel so real. And I know a lot of people online of Pakistani origin and people from the Middle East who adapted to America have all been like, this is my parents, and yeah, they just feel so real, you know. So straight away they're like, is it a party? Are you going to a party? It's going to be recorded. Are you going to end up on the internet, Kamala? Her mom just doesn't trust her, and I love her dad's like, we're not saying we don't trust you. She's like, no, I do not trust you. Excellent. But they also just don't get the whole superhero thing, especially when they hear that she will be dressed as Captain Marvel, who, don't you know, wears a skin-tight suit, as her mother points out. And she's only 16, so they're unsure about her doing that. That sounds like it had to be on the internet when Brie Larson got cast. Like, oh, what's she wearing? Oh, smile more. Kind of funny. But yeah, the skin-tight suit. But that, you know, regardless of that, she wants to go. She wants to be as Captain Marvel because that's her favourite hero. And we get, again, cool kind of visual flares of them showing the text. I don't know, it's just a cool way of doing exposition, you know. Keeps it visually interesting, even if it is a bit superfluous, you know. She tries on the costume, though. And we get one moment here that, for me, just nailed the character straight away. And there's a kind of seemingly a moment of insecurity, you know. She's a teenage girl, unsure of her place in American society, and insecure in her own body. And she just looks at herself, not sure of her figure, her silhouette in the clothes, and she grabs a scarf and kind of wraps it around her waist. Which is just, I don't know, maybe I'm looking too much into that moment, but for me, I was just like, it's sad, and it really nailed the character. I just loved that moment, and also it explained the scarf, which is prominent in her rest of costume. But as it turns out as well, I mean, she needs some of her own flair to the costume, so it kind of works out that way as well. But we also get, you know, as great as Kamala's costume is, as great as she looks, no one is going to top her dad. Her parents are like, you can go to Avengers Con for 2 hours. Your dad is going to go in with you, and wouldn't you know it, he's there as the Hulk. Oh my god, it was it was amazing. It also looked terrifying. I don't know why it looked so scary. It was because there was so much paint, and it looked like where there should logically be gaps in the paint, there wasn't, and it kind of was upsetting. But, you know, in that way, we feel like Kamala seeing her dad as the Hulk, and she was going to dress as in traditional Pakistani clothes, with looking like the Hulk, and they were like, "Oh, you can be Hulk and Little Hulk." Oh, it was brilliant. But yeah, she says that's humiliating, and again, it just felt like that real relatable moment where a teenager says something to their parents, and it's just that moment where they're growing up and going in a bit different directions, and they say something they don't mean. And man, it hit right here, the coming of age stuff. And I hate coming of age stuff normally. God damn you, Marvel, you've got me. But yeah, she's like, I'm embarrassed by you, and you feel bad for the parents. It's humiliating. Even though their intentions are good. Her mom says that dressing up in something skimpy like the other girls isn't her. I do want to make a sign here. We get a very interesting Easter egg. And it's referenced twice, actually. And that is for Edison Electronics. So there's two things. First of all, on the Edison Electronics sign, we have a lightning bolt, like that, which is the lightning bolt that she has on her costume as Miss Marvel. But also, there's an Easter egg earlier on, where we have a quick kind of sketch of a cockatoo. Or cockatiel, I don't know what you call it. A bird. That'll be easier. And the reference of Edison. So, one of Miss Marvel's villains is a clone of Thomas Edison that was turned into a bird by a scientist called, I think, Gregory Knox. Yeah, it's as weird as it sounds. That's one of Miss Marvel's villains. Do I think we're going to get that character? Probably not. But the other thing is, I don't know what villain we are going to get here. But yeah, pretty cool Easter egg there. Edison, Thomas Edison, the clone, cockatiel, cockatoo, bird. Maybe maybe they'll set it up at some point. Maybe it's just a nice nod to the comic readers, which it easily could be. But it is pretty good. We do get a line here as well that just feels like it sums up the Kamala Khan character as well, where she's talking to Bruno on the rooftop and she says, "It's not the brown girls from Jersey City that save the world." And you're like, "Aw, but you will, Kamala. Come on, you're a star girl." Her friend reassures her, and they have a moment. It kind of feels like for a moment like it's going to be a will they won't they love triangle for the rest of the show, but no, it doesn't last, as we see when we get to episode 2. He makes her photon gloves for her Captain Marvel costume, which are kind of glowy light up things, and she hatches a plan using her home assistant. Basically, it's Google Home, but they don't want to say that. She intends to use it to pretend she's in her room and sneak out because Bruno set that up so they can use the camera, and basically anytime someone's near, they can be like, "Oh, don't come in, I'm sleeping." A real Ferris Bueller situation. Oh yeah. But yes, the costume contest, as I mentioned, says kind of bring some of yourself to the costume. So not just the scarf, she decides to get the bracelet from the attic, and off they go to AvengerCon, which looks fun. It didn't look like a massive convention, I'll be honest. It looked like a small enough convention that was probably filmed during COVID, but it did look like fun. They had a load of props everywhere, a load of Easter eggs to the Avengers and the Marvel Universe. But yeah, it was pretty cool. Unfortunately, something that's also cool, but maybe a bit unplanned, is that the bracelet, the bangle, has now activated. It's created a sort of force field around her. On stage, she's stressed by the camera flashes, and she accidentally shoots some beams from the bracelet, causing the crowd to love it. They're just like, yes! She could be a real hero! She also accidentally beheads Giant Ant-Man, Ant-Man is having a rough time. They're like, hey, Scott, you're the only one that's enough of a loser to be on a podcast, and also we're going to behead you. What's their problem? But the head goes barreling around the place, causes chaos. Then we get a kind of a rude Goldberg machine, which loosens a Mjolnir hammer from the ceiling, which knocks into another competitor, which is Zoe Zimmer, who doesn't seemingly recognize Kamala, which is important. Knocks her into the air, and as she falls, Kamala uses the bracelet to extend a projected hand to catch her. So, I guess this is as good a point as any to talk about her powers. So, in the comics, Kamala Khan's power is that she can elongate herself, or embiggen herself, as she often calls it. So she can make stretchy arms, make her fist really big, all that kind of thing. She can also sort of change her appearance using that as well. But she doesn't do that here. Now, there's been a lot of speculation as to why that is, and the origin is also different. In the comics, she is, I believe it's an inhuman bomb, a Terrigen mist bomb, that awakens powers within her. That is not the case here. Now, when the Marvel character, when she was introduced, the Inhumans were getting a big push in the comics because the X-Men weren't being used because Fox owned the X-Men at the time. Little did we know that it would not matter in a couple of years. But basically, that is probably why she's an Inhuman, because they wanted to make the Inhumans a bit of a bigger deal in the Marvel comics because they had rights to the Inhumans and not the X-Men. I'm not saying she would have been a mutant, by the way, but I'm saying she could have been just a regular character. So that's one factor in why she's probably not an Inhuman here, because the Inhumans aren't really fully in the MCU yet. We got one reference to them. I'm not going to say what it is because, hey, spoilers, I guess, in Doctor Strange. But the other thing is that I think there's two other reasons why they changed her actual power as opposed to her origin. Number one, the obvious one that everyone's saying is Mr. Fantastic does the stretchy thing. You know, the Fantastic Four are going to be coming to the MCU. And having two characters whose powers are just really, really similar like that, it kind of makes them both feel a bit less special. And certainly, for finally, hopefully, getting a Fantastic Four right in film, they don't want to just say, oh, well, you know, Miss Marvel did that already. So that's one reason. The other reason, I think, is that she's going to appear in the Marvels. She's going to have a connection with, Monica Rambeau and Carol Danvers, and presumably go to space. Stretching, well, I don't know how that fits in space. You know, like, I'm not saying it won't be interesting, but the rest of them are just flying using their kind of quantum. I just fell for the Ant-Man trap, but I put true quantum in front of something and I made it sound like it sounded sensible. But they've got all these kind of glowy, lasery powers that look kind of cosmic, and she's just going to be like, hey, watch this, woo, stretchy hand. So I think it makes sense to give her something that is a bit more visual, a bit more cosmic, that might allow her to travel in space. So I think that connection also makes sense. I've heard other people say, like, hey, do you know what they did? They got rid of it because that was meant to be a metaphor for how she doesn't fit in. And I'm like, would you fit in if you were glowing? Or could fire projectiles from your arms? Not exactly. Now, again, obviously she can probably take it off. And as we get in the second episode, it turns out that the power isn't from the bracelet. The power is inside her, and the bracelet awakens something within her. It was kind of a throwaway line, but hints that could be she could still be an Inhuman. Who knows? But that is where we kind of leave the powers. So yeah, she sort of saves Zoe Zimmer. She sneaks into her house then to get home. She's way past her curfew, using a platform from her glove to sneak back in. But wouldn't you know it, her mother is waiting right there. And she's confronted by her mother in her room. And she says she doesn't recognize this rebellious girl. And she insists that she is not trying... Kamala says, I'm not trying to rebel. And she says something that seems very telling. Who do you want to be in this world? Do you want to be good, like we raised you to be? Or do you want to be this cosmic head in the clouds person? Is it too much to ask for both? But yes, she sits in a room looking at her glowing hand and says, cosmic. Yeah, end of the episode. That's what I mean. There's a lot to talk... Sorry, excuse me. Excuse me. There's stuff we can talk about in this episode, but it's all pretty surface level, I think. We should talk about the post-credit scene. We got a post-credit scene in the very first episode, which we don't often get in the Marvel shows. But Damage Control have seen saw what happened at AvengerCon, and they have a serious interest in Kamala Khan. This character is also the same Damage Control agent we saw in Spider-Man No Way Home, who was questioning Peter Parker and his friends. We will get to that again in a minute, because he is in the second episode as well, and quite prominently. And that does bring us into the second episode. I do want to say, as far as this episode, I loved it. It was well written, it was fun, it was creative. I thought the casting was superb. I loved all of it. There was nothing I disliked about this episode. And I mean, honestly, Iman Vellani, what a great find. She's so charismatic and entertaining. She's just very likable. And that's what you want in the Miss Marvel character. It was very, very faithful to the comics. The one prominent thing they swapped is that the role of the kind of disapproving parental figure is the father in the comics more so than the mother. They swapped that around here. I think that works better, actually. And yeah, I mean, Zoe Zimmer is saved by her in this. There's another element later on that's very from the comics. But yeah, let's get into episode 2, which is Crushed, which, as you find out, has a bit of a few meanings to it. But yeah, Iman Vellani, Captain Marvel, Kamala Khan, is feeding herself. I got to her actual name eventually. She's feeding herself in high school. She's walking around like, yeah, hey, you know, finger guns all over the place. She's like Toby in Spider-Man 3. She's, you know, doing really well. But then the kind of reality sets in. Zoe Zimmer is talking about her as a hero, and they call her Nightlight. Oof, not a cool name. Zoe Zimmer, you should have brought that one back to the drawing board. But Zoe is also having a party and invites a new student, Cameron, to the party, because that's important, because Kamala has the hots for him, and it's, you know, Cameron, Kamala, can we make a couple name there? Kamala? I don't know. They both have K's anyway. They're like Kardashians. But yeah, she has a crush on him. She wants to go to the party. Kamala and Bruno start testing her powers. Again, felt very kind of like Spider-Man with the Sam Raimi stuff almost, where he's like, you know, testing on the rooftops and stuff. And she has an idea to use her powers to make platforms after seeing him play a platformer. And it kind of works. It takes a while for her to get the platforms that can support her. But it definitely feels like she's getting there, you know. That's where we also get the bit of information that the bangle isn't the source of her power, the power is inside her, and the bangle awakens it, I guess. We also should say there was a kind of a moment where the bangle activated in the first episode, where when it activated she kind of saw all these shadowy figures, so there's some sort of history with the bangle, sort of, which we go into in this episode. There's also a moment where she's testing her powers, and there's a moment where it looks like the fist is just massive. It definitely looks like him big, and it looks like the comic book power. So I think they can always backtrack and get it more comic accurate as they go on anyway. I think it's just different enough those where people aren't going to be like, hey, that's the same thing as Mr. Fantastic. But sure. Also, she can throw projectiles with it. That's cool. And we have a name for this, which is, you know, it's hardened light, so it's called Hard Light. Great. I'm pretty sure, isn't that like the powers? I guess that'd be like the powers of Jubilee as well, would it? Or is it Dagger as well has powers? I don't know. Yeah, we also get a moment that's funny, and I see everyone pointing at one Easter egg here, where she kind of stumbles off the roof, and Bruno catches her and holds her hand, and she's like looking up at him, and it seems like she's going to fall a great distance. She's like, "Let go," and everyone's like, "Oh my god!" It's like Black Widow and Vormir in Avengers Endgame. For me, it reminded me of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where the McPoyles are on the roof because they just fall, and they're like, "Oh, it's grand, actually, thanks."
Are you all right? Yeah.
But yes, she's doing better with her light platforms, and it's starting to work. Meanwhile, they go to the mosque. Again, this is straight from the comics. The mosque has a partition where the women have to sit, kind of sit behind it to preserve their modesty and dignity. This is also something, a kind of criticism I guess you could throw at the first episode, was that I didn't feel like the relationship between her and Nakia was that well explored, but it does get explored here. That's her best friend, also her cousin, I believe they said, which I didn't realize, but they just have great chemistry, man. They really do. And they're just kind of chatting, messing around while they should be paying attention in the mosque. We also get a kind of a funny thing here that does pay off later, even though most people wouldn't be aware of it, which is that in the mosque, Nakia puts up her new shoes. They're Versace. They're very nice shoes, actually. And they're stolen when they go to collect them, because of course they're in the mosque barefoot. And that does pay off later, believe it or not. I thought this was going to be like the first case. I was like, oh, is this going to be Kamala having to use her powers? Like, get the shoe thief. In a way, as we'll get to. So that was kind of cool. Kamala then goes to a party, and she actually gets permission from her mother. And again, this was something that made me go like, I like this moment. This feels like a real relationship where it's like, look, she was like, she better not be asking me like about AvengerCon 2. And she was like, look, I want to go to a party. My friends are going. I'll be back by this time. And she's like, okay, go. So it was nice, even though there is that kind of tension that we get in the teenage years. she is still her mother, and she is still kind of accepting. So it is. I loved, again, it just felt like a real relationship. I think the actress who plays the mother is just crushing it so far. But yes, we also have. I just need some sort of sound effect here or something to say from the comics, or should I have Tom's comic corner? Because this is another scene, and first of all, the wardrobe is from the comics, her furry kind of hat, and also the scene where someone's like, "Hey, do you want a drink?" "Oh yeah, here's some orange juice. Do you want orange juice?" "Yeah, I'll drink orange juice." And then, "Oh no, it's vodka." Yes, this happens exactly. I think so. She accidentally takes a drink, and our new student Cameron gets his Casino Royale moment, coming all sexy out of the swimming pool, and. You know, she's totally smitten, obviously. But hey, that's cool. They let Marvel characters be horny. Hooray! You know, but it's appropriate for, you know, a teenage characters to be that way. That's cool that they didn't kind of shy away from that. Like, they make them just robot adults, because they're not, you know. And I think that's, they really do a good job of tapping in to the teenage side of the character, which is what makes this character different, you know. I probably even more so, they're probably tapping into the teenage side even more so than they did with Peter Parker in the MCU. But anyway, they get into Cameron's car because the police are coming, and Kamala and Cameron bond over shared taste in music and Bollywood. And Bruno is just such a cockblock, man. He's like, they can be like, "Hey, I like that movie too, man. I really do." It's just funny. But I did kind of feel bad for Bruno. And yeah, go on you, Kamala. You got his digits, girl. I don't know. I get very sassy when I'm talking about teenage girls. I don't know. Is that what I'm meant to do? Like, you go, girl. As if I'm going to fit in. But yeah, she's she gets the digits. And I also love like the minor kind of prick thing here where you're like, Cameron seems like a nice guy, but when he's like, "I'll see you later," Kamala and Nakia and Brian, he's like, "It's Bruno." He knows it's not Brian. I also had a moment that I just loved. That made me just go, man, I do love this show, where she gets in and straight away she's dancing and singing in the most over-the-top thing of getting the boy's number. Oh, it was so much fun. And that's just how I sum the show up. I know just saying fun over and over again is awful. I mean, that's an often a common review tactic we get from Marvel. It's just fun. But this show is. It's so hard. It's so likable, you know. But they start texting almost immediately. He's going to give her a driving lesson in this really cool car. Back in class, we see that she is absolutely smitten. She's like looking out the window, and all of a sudden her nose glows. Is that something to do with her being, you know? Oh man, I'm after walking myself into a corner here, and I have to say something weird. When she thinks of someone she likes, and her nose glows. Phew. But yeah, her nose starts to glow, so she covers it with her hand, runs away to the bathroom. And Nakia, being the nice supportive friend, goes in to check on her, and she's like, "I'll help you unconditionally," and asks if everything is okay, even though she's not aware at this point that she's Miss Marvel. The only one who knows that is Bruno. So Kamala kind of says, like, "You make life look so easy," and Nakia talks about how she finds it hard too, balancing her faith with people's expectations of her, and she also gives her some nice kind of outfits. She kits her out with her fit. God, this teenage show is really bringing out the worst in me with my old man slang. Hey, TikTok, am I right, kids? Yeah, so she's running for the mosque board because before it seemed like she was really annoyed about how male-dominated the mosque was while they were there. And yeah, Bruno talks to Mr. Wilson. I shouldn't call him that, I know, but I will. About an opportunity that's arisen, but means he'd have to go to California. I don't think we got any information on what that was. Maybe I'm wrong. But yeah, Cameron and Kamala are on a date now after a date after their driving lesson, and they're talking, waiting for food, and we get a mention of Kingo from the Inhumans, Kumail Nanjiani's character. Funnily enough, they're like, "Oh, you know, I find Kingo hot," and they're like, "Oh yeah, well, you won't believe my mother found Kingo Senior hot," and they're like, "Ooh," even though, as we learned in the Eternals, it's the same person the whole time, which is fun. But yeah, they're totally vibing on this date. But outside the window is Kamala's brother, who is quite devout, as we learned in the first two episodes. Again, seems like a nice guy. He actually fights for Kamala to let her go to AvengerCon at one point, but does seem very devout in his faith. And that is why she's hiding from him and his fiancée, because they're kind of sharing an intimate moment hiding behind the menu from her brother. It seems like they're going to kiss. They don't, but their brother enters and they lie, and they're like, "Oh, he's our cousin," and he's, of course, speaking like, "Hello." I should mention he's from London, you see. Cameron from London. And he starts talking, and then they're like, "Oh, you're from, how are you from London?" He's like, "Oh, I'm actually Pakistani." So he does a dodgy Pakistani accent. And he's like, "I was just doing a London accent because I'm a big fan of the Great British Bake Off. Subtle save, nice save. But yeah, I don't think he buys it, but he does decide to leave him alone. And then we get a little bit of an interesting story about Kamala's mother. Wait, Kamala's mother's mother, yeah. Sana. And this is cool, where again it's tying into the culture of Pakistan, which is a vibe in the show. But she said Sana, who is Kamala's grandmother, I suppose, is separated from her parents getting on the last train during the partition of India. India separated into Pakistan and India in the 40s. And basically, she's only a toddler at this point. And as they're getting on the last train, she splits off from this group and disappears. And they do all the searching for her, but whatever happens, she manages to find her way back on the train by herself. And the family story that they all seem to be aware because they've heard it a million times is, how did she get there? She followed a trail of stars back to her father. Her mother, however, disappeared that night. And the bangle belongs to Sana's mother, so Kamala's great-grandmother, I believe, Aisha. Kamala has a vision at this point, at the dinner table, of a woman kind of reaching out and beckoning her to come through a door, and blacks out, wakes up on the floor with her mother just really hilariously just throwing water on her face, which I'm like, that can't help. But it was great. And she is like trying to find out more about this bracelet, more about who it belonged to. So she rings her grandmother Sana to try and find out about the bangle, but she won't say anything. Kamala asks her mother about Aisha, and she won't say anything except she brought shame on the family and not to bring her up again. In case you forgot, we were in New Jersey, by the way. The whole Khan family love Bon Jovi. They're like, hey, what do they call him? They had some moniker for him that I'd never heard that I just thought was hilarious. It was like the Jersey Prince or something. I was like, oh my god. But yeah, that was it was funny. It was nice to see that kind of side of our parents as well, because they come off as quite strict, but see them kind of cut loose a bit. It was quite fun and quite enjoyable, and again added to the realness of those characters for me. And yeah, they are at an Ed Mubarak market campaign, and Naki is there campaigning for votes for the mosque board. She tries to get it off Kamala's father, who I guess is her uncle. Doesn't go well. He's like, oh, I have to vote for my best friend, not you, niece. But as this is going on, Damage Control is interrogating Zoe Zimmer, because of course she was filmed on stage with this new superhero character, Nightlight, or Miss Marvel as we will know her as. They do the same tactic that they did with Ned, where Ned's like, oh, I saw your filming. Oh man, you're a friend of Spider-Man. That's so cool. Big fan. And tell me again about how you committed a crime. Well, they really turn around on her, and she falls for it, hook, line, and sinker. Again, it's the same character from Spider-Man No Way Home. I think his name is something Cleary. I can't remember, is that the actor or the character? But anyway, and I'll get into Damage Control a bit in a minute. But Kamala asks around at the market about her great-grandmother, and no one has anything positive to say. And you know, they say if you don't have anything good to say nothing. These people never learned that, because they were like, it's going to be very gossipy, here's where you learn. So she says she may have had an affair and also killed a man. She's considered a snake, and no one has anything positive to say about her. But as this is happening, a boy is falling from a window. He was taking a selfie, and he's now hanging on from dear life from the curtains. The curtain rings are slowly starting to tear the curtain off. He's going to fall. Interestingly, that is the man, the boy. If you got a look at his feet, he stole Nakia's shoes. Let him fall! Boo! He stole, what, 12, 14 pairs of shoes? He deserves to fall to his death. But yeah, no, that was a nice touch that I don't think a lot of people caught on. But yeah, those shoes are the same if you look at the shoes he's wearing. And if you look at the shoes that Nakia puts in early on, you'll see they're the same colour scheme. There's no doubt about it. Those are the same shoes. But again, a fun little touch. Kamala, of course, is hoping the same. This is her superhero moment. And she kind of used her hard light platforms to walk to the boy and catch him before he falls. And she creates... she catches him before he falls, and she's like going to walk him over. And it looks like, hey, this is going to be a big moment. She actually has like kind of a daydream and all the success and all the social media hits. And she even jumps off her platform and does a superhero landing. Yeah, it's official, folks. She's a superhero now. She still has a bit to learn, though, because she has another flash of that woman as she's doing it. And because of that, she loses concentration, the bangle stops working, and the boy starts falling. And she kind of, I don't know what you call this, you know, is it like plinko, is that what it's called? You know, where the ball kind of goes like dung, 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 dung. It was like that because the boy is falling and she's like, platform. He's just bouncing off platform to platform and then lands off a car. He's safe enough. I guess that's it's a sloppy execution, but I guess you saved him. But yes, the boy is safe thanks to Kamala. Not so safe though is Kamala herself, because as she gets down, she sees a drone coming from her. Interestingly enough as well, this drone is the same drone. It's one of the Stark drones that we have from Spider-Man Far From Home, which we last saw being used by Mysterio. So I guess, all that stuff came into the property of damage control, possibly. I don't know. Then again, the Department of Damage Control at another stage were, had a Stark contract, so I don't know. But either way, they seem to have access to the same drones. Again, I'm not sure the logic of that, but it was a cool Easter egg. Seems to be the same one remodified to try capture Kamala. But Kamala does a good job of escaping, and that she jumps over. She kind of like knocks over the drone, jumps over a car, and falls. And just as it looks like she's now going to have to get captured, a car pulls up with Cameron. Way, I can be your hero, baby. Man, this guy. So he gets in, or she gets into his car. But this is a bit awkward. In the backseat is his mother, who says she's been waiting a long time to meet her. Dun, dun, dun. So that's episode 2. I guess the question is, out of this, what are Damage Control doing? Where do they fit into this? And what was the story with the ending? I don't know what the story with the ending is. I'll be totally honest. I'll put my hands up. I can speculate, but I honestly don't know. Obviously, the whole Cameron thing is seemingly some sort of smokescreen, and that they wanted her to get close to Kamala to be in it, which, man, that sucks. It seemed like she had a nice thing going on, and that rug got pulled. It is interesting that they pulled the rug out so quickly there. They're like, there we go, potential love interest. By the end of the episode, they're like, no, never mind. But, I suppose something could still blossom. The question is, who does she work for? And that is not as clear. The other question is, what's the story with this bangle? Some people have said it could tie to the 10 rings. Maybe. We don't know. Is it an extraterrestrial thing? Is it a new thing altogether? Is there a chance that she's still an Inhuman if the power is inside her? Maybe. But I think they might just be vague enough that they can fit it in after, depending. The other question is, what do Damage Control want? And it's not so easy to say what they want. They've seemingly taken a lot of interest in Kamala. We saw that they took interest in Spider-Man. They're taking interest in a lot of the young superheroes. Are they trying to make their own team of young Avengers? We don't know. It kind of feels like S.H.I.E.L.D. formed the Avengers. They could form the Young Avengers. I don't know. Or maybe someone to tackle smaller crime. Also interesting, and this was in the credits of the first episode, was that Haley Steinfeld, I think it was our makeup artist or assistant, got mentioned in the credits, and people are now speculating if she is going to be in the show. Now, it could have just been a copy and paste thing where they didn't change the credits from Hawkeye, although that seems really amateurish, doesn't it? Also interesting, though, is in the closing credits, the artwork, the titles, show a Trust a Bro moving agency, so maybe she could turn up. And if she did, that could be set up for Young Avengers. I don't know, maybe I just have Young Avengers on the mind, because it does feel like going through every Marvel show, there's been some hint at a Young Avengers at some point. And who better to lead them, or who better to be involved than Kamala Khan, But yeah, that's the first 2 episodes of Miss Marvel. Like I said, I absolutely loved it. And that brought us to episode 3. What a seamless transition. You would know nothing has changed since we had our discussion of the first 2 episodes. Yeah, episode 3 is titled Destined, and I should probably mention this. I mentioned it with the first episode. But yeah, all the episodes so far have been named after collected editions of the comic book. Now, there's not necessarily a correlation there anyway. The first one was titled Generation Y, after the second collected edition of the kind of introduction run of Kamala Khan. The second episode was the third one, so they skipped the first one if you're keeping up. It was titled Crushed. And this one is titled Destined, which is from a more recent one, actually. I think it's 2019 it was collected in. But either way, we're starting with a bit of an epic flashback. We talked, of course, about how Kamala's great-grandmother fled to basically, when there was the partition between India and Pakistan, she was involved in there. She went missing, apparently. This is in 1942. We're in British-occupied India, and a few people, including Aisha, who is, of course, her great-grandmother, are searching an excavation and the temple. And What is also interesting is that it seems, and a few people have pointed this out, it looks like there's the 10 Rings logo on the floor there. So, kind of interesting correlation between where the 10 Rings itself may have come from that we saw in Shang-Chi. You know, is there? I assume there will be a tie-in at some point. Certainly, if you're dealing with artifacts, why not tie them together to a certain degree? But seemingly, we're pretty much confirmed that, and I've mistyped this in my notes, the bangle, not the bagel. They were not searching for a bagel. The Kree did not have a bagel in his hand. Yeah, the bangle is seemingly of extraterrestrial origin, and that we see a blue hand, so presumably it is from a Kree, which again is another connection between Miss Marvel and Captain Marvel, because Captain Marvel is full of Kree blood. She's a human Kree hybrid. Basically, they take the bangle, and interestingly, they say that there's meant to be 2 of them, and they can't find the second one. Now, does that mean that somebody else out there has the bangle? Is it still in that temple? We don't know. Certainly we get an answer to that at some point, I imagine. I just hope it doesn't mean that we're going to get, hey, Miss Marvel's got the powers of bangle, and so does someone else. My God, they're exactly similar, which is what we get in most Marvel things. It's like, wow, the hero has to fight a villainous version of themselves, basically. But they find one. Aisha hopes that there's a chance that this will take her back home. As we later find out, that home is another dimension. New galaxy, intergalactic planetary. Ooh. You just got some saucy dancing if you watch the video version. Yeah, so you want, they're from another dimension. I'll refrain myself from saying intergalactic at this point. Yeah, they run to escape the temple, and we don't see what happens next. But we do end up back in New Jersey. And Kamala is with the woman from last week, who we saw, she was seeing a vision of, and was with Cameron in the back of the car. I'm assuming that's the same woman. It looks like the same woman. It's funny, I wondered that at first, and I didn't see people saying that online, so I was like, oh God, am I just saying like, oh, they look alike? Is that going to be misinterpreted? No, I'm pretty sure they're the same woman. But we should know that, as I mentioned, they are from another dimension. Aisha is as well, of course. And they were exiled from that dimension. And by putting on the bangle, they were drawn to Kamala. They weren't aware that Aisha had any living relatives. So that's a thought. So basically, anytime she uses it, is she basically drawing them closer, potentially? But yes, the bangle, as I mentioned, helps her unlock Noor, which means light from another dimension. That dimension becomes known as basically the Noor dimension, N-O-O-R. And it works for her as she's from this dimension. But sorry, I should explain that. They say that she can use the powers of that because she's kind of a child of both worlds, as it were. She has, ancestry dating from the Noor dimension, but she was born in our dimension. Man, the dimensions and multiverses, it's all going on. So they all want Kamala's bangle to help them get home. This is what Aisha wanted. And yeah, in case you couldn't guess at this point, they're the bad guys. And it's really obvious at this point. It's like, oh, we want to get to your own dimension, even no matter the cost, even if it destroys this dimension. They don't go that far, but it's very obvious. So they are from the Noor dimension. In the Noor dimension, they are known as clandestines. However, they are best known as Jinn, D-J-I-N-N, and we get the obvious joke out of the way at start. Bruno says, Antonic Badum. Well done, Bruno. Kamala is terrified, as she was told Jinn stories growing up. Basically, they're like ghost stories. They were terrifying. And yeah, they're basically based on real folklore, I should say, not based on a real thing, but in Islamic folklore. And I'm going to cut down here to later in the episode because we get an explanation from a document that Kamala's dad reads. And I think, this is something I might as well just read now because when I get to that scene, I can just skip over it. But I thought it was a very succinct and easy explanation. So they are supernatural beings of Islamic folklore. They've had many names ranging from genies to demons. And I believe jinn does mean demon. Legend tells of a group of hidden jinn exiled from home and damned to live out their days trapped in our dimension. They move in shadows, searching for the key to get them home. But to do this, they basically would have to require a primordial power. So primordial power, I guess, is the bangle. They are the exiled ones searching for a way to get home. As I said, I've already said they're the bad guys. I've already explained the jinn. So, I kind of jump it around here, but I think it's going to make sense of why I'm doing that. It kind of makes things a bit faster. So that's a bit what's going on. She goes to Bruno, and as he said, he makes that awful dad joke, but someone was going to make it Bruno. I'm glad it was you, buddy. And at the same moment, she's like, what do you know about interdimensional travel? And he goes, oh, I think I read a paper by Dr. Eric Selvig. MCU connection. Wow. Yeah, of course, that's Stellan Skarsgård in the Thor films and the Avengers and, all that stuff. So he's written a paper on it. Kamala's also gaining traction online and attracting attention. And she's also attracting the attention of Department of Damage Control, Seamless, who have shown up at the mosque. They want to see it as a link to Kamala, and they just get absolutely schooled here. Like, Naki is like, boom, where's your warrant? And they're like, oh, you think you need a warrant? Where'd you learn that? And she's like, law and order, motherfucker, boom. And then the imam comes in and he's like, hey, next time you're here, don't wear shoes, bitch, boom. I mean, there's less swearing, but it had that attitude. They just completely, laid them out. Department of Damage Control just got absolutely annihilated. It's going to be hard to take them seriously as a threat from now on. At this point, Nakia goes to Kamala, and she's frustrated. And at the intervention of a government agency, basically, the implication that she has is that, would you do this if it was any other faith? Which is an interesting one to ponder. It's not going to dwell on that. We had enough kind of... This show is it's not as political as you might think. In some ways, it's not delving into necessarily what it's like to be a Muslim in America from a prejudice point of view, but it is kind of going into the culture and stuff. And I know there's probably people on the internet online being like, "Look at the politics; they're Muslim," But anyway, let's not delve into that because the show has done a good job of not delving into it either. Kamala's very, very worried, of course, that she knows now that they're looking into the mosque and the Miss Marvel character, Nightlight, whatever her name may be. And Nakia also mentions as an aside that she won the election to get on the board. Well done, Nakia. We're all very proud of you. At the Mendi, this is essentially a ceremony where they get tattooed the night before a wedding, because it is going to be the wedding of her brother. The family discuss Miss Marvel, and the imam is there as well. Miss Marvel and Kamala's mother... Kamala's mother discusses Miss Marvel and says basically the hero is causing trouble. And then on a very on-the-nose line, she says her mother would be ashamed. Oh, but don't you know, you're her mother. So she's hurt by her mother's words, of course. Bruno also sent her a box. They dropped it by the house, and she goes outside with the box, kind of a bit contemplative, a bit sad to see what's in the box. And as she's doing that, the imam comes out, and I have to say, the imam is very nice. He's very good. I like him. Yeah, he just has a great insight, and I think it would be easy to kind of brush him off because there was that moment in the last episode where he's like, "Hey, girls, stop talking," and some people might say, "Oh, well, I think he's just reinforcing the beliefs of a lot of Muslim practices." But some people might see that as slightly, not in keeping with their own beliefs. But they've really made an effort here to show that he is a good person and a good character. So, as this is all going on, he comes out and she's saying, what do you think about this superhero yourself, basically? And she says something that I thought is interesting. She says, it's nice to have a hero for them. But she thinks that maybe that they're just making things worse. Which is, cool. Again, it's representation that we're getting across the MCU now. Hey, Moon Knight was Jewish, man. Man, we're getting all faiths. Where is the Buddhist hero? I don't know. Or the Hindu hero. But either way, the Imam says to him, basically, just something that I thought was very wise and very insightful. He says, you're making things worse, but I don't think the boy that was saved, well, not you're making things worse, he doesn't go that far, he doesn't know. But he says, you might think she's doing worse, but I'm sure the boy you got saved wouldn't agree. And he says, good is not a thing you are, it is a thing you do. And again, that is also taken from the comics, but a very wise, very good line. And the perfect moment for her to get confident and happy, because Bruno's box contains a domino mask. She's slowly piecing together her costume. Hopefully he just sends a box every week, and then by the end we give her a costume and continue the Marvel tradition of the last episode being when they get new gear. So Kamala's dad, as I mentioned, comes into the Circle Q in the middle of this party, sees that Bruno is working on all this and explains the djinn. And that's pretty much, I pretty much said that scene already. I mean, it was exposition to explain the bad guys a bit more. Bruno tells her that dimensional travel is theoretically possible, but you need the energy of the sun. Actually, he says something far more serious. He says there's a serious margin of error, and he gets very technical in it. And Kamala's like, dumb it down. It was like, I'm going to use this Star Trek Futurama explanation where they're like a really complex explanation and then someone just gives a very simple answer.
Well, usually on the show, someone would come up with a complicated plan, then explain it with a simple analogy.
If we can reroute engine power through the primary weapons and reconfigure them to Melvar's frequency, that should overload his electro-quantum structure.
Like putting too much air in a balloon.
Yeah, if you try to send them home, things may go boom, in other words. But yeah, Bruno tells her that he got into Caltech. I couldn't remember that when I talked about the last episode, but there you go. And he's thinking he should go. But he promises her to help her do this, but wants to take the time to do it safely. I'll tell you who doesn't want to do it safely, though. And that is Kamran's mother, Najma. She discovers a text between him and Kamala and is angry that he's leaving her off lightly. Basically, he's like, you didn't think I'd find out? They know this is dangerous. They don't care. She's not asking anymore. She wants to get this done and be sent home. But of course, we're going to find out if there is true love between Kamran and Kamala. Is he going to stand up for Kamala? Or is he going to stick by his mother? So yeah, I should also mention, just before this, Kamala talks to her mother about how something she wanted so bad. And again, I really love the mother-daughter relationship in this. But she's basically saying, like, have you ever wanted something so bad and then it didn't turn out as great as you wanted it to be? And of course, she's talking about being a superhero. But Muniba, her mother, again, I'm going to try to learn their names. I keep forgetting to actually look up their names because they're using, often they're using like terms of affection, instead of the names. But she tells her that she felt that way about Coming to America, not the Eddie Murphy movie. she wasn't like, oh, I really thought this was going to be good, but in reality it's not as good as I thought it was. I'm sure she loves that movie. Who does not? No, she's talking about Coming to America with her husband, of course, with her Kamala's father, and basically says, you know, we dreamed of coming here, but it was hard. Long hours, isolation, and not having the language. And then eventually she's like, I found a mosque, I found friends, and I had a family. Basically reminding Kamala that whatever problem you face, you don't have to do it alone. You know, love is all you need, to quote the Beatles. Yeah, I love this scene. Again, I really love the mother-daughter relationship, and I can't wait for that moment where I'm assuming she's going to find out who her daughter is, because I think it's just going to be so well done. And again, the acting in this has been fantastic. It's easy because it is a lighter show that you could just kind of brush aside. But I think it's been fantastic. It's really fun and playful and emotional when it needs to be. So it's been excellent in my regard. As I said, it is her brother Amir's wedding day. His father speaks to him after Amir reveals that he's almost broke. And he says, again, we're getting a lot of nuggets of wisdom here. And I'm very worried anytime someone does that. I think we might get an Uncle Ben moment where it's like, here you go, here's something wise. Oh God, I hope no one gets shot. Oh, I can't. I hope Dad doesn't get shot. Dad's too nice. He's too much fun. So he said, a man has one choice: to live a life of fear or love. The man who chooses love, or junam, I think was the word he used, gets passion, faith, and courage. And he tells him he is brave, for today he's going to show his faith and will and stand before God and choose family. And when you choose family, you're never alone. So we're really getting the emphasis of you have family here. This is about family. You're never alone, Kamala. Okay, because Kamala overhears all of this. As I mentioned, in the midst of all this wedding, we found out that Kamran had that conversation with Najma, which means she's now like, I don't care. We're going to take that bang and we're getting back to our dimension, no matter the cost. And in the midst of the wedding, Bruno and Kamala are about to have a dance, and wouldn't you know it, cock blocker Kamran. Come on, Bruno. Oh, poor guy. He burst in to warn her that the family isn't... Warn her, although he might want to warm her as well. To warn her that the family is in danger. The jinn crash the wedding. And Kamala goes for an old school. She doesn't use her powers. She just pulls the fire alarm, which some people may have taken notice of. The jinn pursue Kamala and ruthlessly take out anyone. They're just punching and knocking people out, anyone that gets near her. And we get Living on a Prayer, which is, man, nice callback to last week's episode, and also just a really fun song for this chase scene. I actually have to say, in general, the soundtrack of the show has been very good. I like we kind of had an epic tune at the start of the show this week, and the music in general has had a real kind of Islamic vibe that felt like true to the show, but also more modern. It was really good. It's nice to see, like, sometimes when when a certain culture is mishandled, they use music that is like very stereotypical and feels very dated. Here it feels like they're going for music that feels like it would represent that culture in a more modern setting, and I'm really enjoying it. Actually, some of the songs, the first episode I think it was from Riz Ahmed, which was awesome. But anyway, so that's what's going on. She's running through the kitchen. I love this moment as well. She runs into the kitchen. Now again, remember, she's like a 16-year-old kid. She runs into the kitchen and she's like, "You have to get out of here." And they're all like, "Yeah, right, whatever." And then when the djinn comes in, punches a guy with one punch and knocks him out, and then was like, "Okay, we're gone, bye." See, violence is the answer, Kamala. So that's all happening. They're scattering. We get a fight scene here. Kamala using her power, and again, I'm going to. So she's using her powers to block and deflect. This is where I'm going to throw a little bit of shade, where I'm going to say the powers are a bit of a letdown, because one of the big controversies has been that they swapped her powers, not flexible. Now she's kind of got hard light, as you mentioned. In a hand-to-hand fight scene, it makes it a little bit dull. It was just kind of like, oh no, I'm being hit. Big flash of light, so you don't even see the impact. Big flash of light. It just felt very... I don't want to say it was unnecessary because you want to show her powers, but it did just feel very visually dull in a close combat scene anyway. So I hope they find a more creative use of her powers, which they do later on in the episode, but I'm hoping it's more of that and less of this. So they're stalking her through the kitchen, and again, I suppose it is early on, I should say. So maybe she's, Kamala herself is discovering how to use her powers. So I guess it makes sense from a storytelling perspective as well. But yeah, they're stalking her in the kitchen in the dark. It's very much like Jurassic Park. And yeah, the djinn are the dinosaurs, I guess. The djinn scare Kamala into using her powers. They use their intelligence. They make a really loud noise, and she's like, "Oh!" and it flashes, and then they see her. Basically, when she gets hit, then it seems like a body armor kind of has her to protect her. So that was seemingly instinct. So hey, she's more durable than we would think. She's blocking their attack. She tries to escape. Bruno provides a momentary distraction because their parents are kind of like, "Where's Kamala?" He goes in and throws a present at them. One of the djinn takes him out, and looks like they're going to go over to take him out. And then we get the debut of the long, stretchy fist. We get some fisting action. Oh, poor choice of words, Tom. Yeah, they use the something that we associate with Kamala, which is the stretchy powers in the comics. People are annoyed about the change of powers. This is what I mean. You can have both, I think, without it feeling too much like Mr. Fantastic, which is what I think they're trying to avoid. But yeah, we got a big old floppy slap, and it was satisfying as fuck. Cameron has returned also to help Kamala and fight off the djinn. Of course, they're still outnumbered, but he very nobly says, "Get Brian out of here." So, hey, maybe he actually did think his name was Brian. I'm assuming he's a good guy and he's not still passive-aggressively being like, "Hey, Brian." Oh, it's Bruno. Sorry, bro. So, Kamala is cornered as she tries to escape, though, and Cameron is taken out, and she's surrounded. But soon they're all surrounded as damage control burst through and start taking people out. They take out the djinn with their guns that we saw them try to use on Kamala in episode 2. And I should say, what was more interesting before this is she saw a vision of a train approaching him. And it was a train to Karachi, as we see on the front of the train. And she gets that vision. She's been on vision all over the place. And as she does that just as damage control attacks. So as they're dealing with the djinn, she manages to sneak away with Bruno. But of course, Cameron is captured. She sneaks out a fire escape, and wouldn't you know it, there is Nakia, who sees her using her powers to try to seal the door behind her, and she's like, "This is you? What the hell?" And they have a brief kind of confrontation where it's like, how couldn't you tell me? Blah blah blah. But also, it's kind of brushed over because she's like, "I don't have time, you have to run," basically. She also gives her a red scarf, which is very pivotal to her costume, which hopefully is going to tie into episode 6. Again, I really hope it's not going to be like, Naki is dead, here, now you can represent her with your scarf. I hope not, because it is her scarf anyway. But hopefully not. I'm just seeing death everywhere I go these days, unfortunately. But yes, as she gets home, her parents are annoyed. They suspect that she pulled the fire alarm. One of her relatives was saying that, and they were like, "There's no way you pulled it, your eyesight's shit." But yeah, they suspect she did it as well. And she knows that she was with the people who were arrested. And they're like, "Why can't you tell us what's happening? All we want you to do is be honest with us." And she says that she can't. Very sad scene. Like, they don't even grill her. It's just kind of sad. She can't tell her parents what's going through. And obviously, I'm guessing the big revelation, probably even like soon, and now that we're at the halfway point, is going to be, yes, you should tell your parents. And now we're all in this together. that wasn't sung in the right key. I just didn't commit myself to singing there. You know, I'm not singing every week. But yes, it seems like things are at a low point. Kamala sits in a room and she gets a call from Nani, who was her grandmother, in Karachi, in Pakistan. Wait a minute, we just saw Karachi at the front of a train. What all this then? And yes, she says to Kamala, you need to come with your mother. And seemingly the mother and Nani don't have a great relationship anyway. And she asks her if she saw the train. And Nani says she saw it too. Dun dun dun. What's going on with Nani? Does that mean, are we going to take a road trip to Pakistan next week? It feels like a real diversion if we do. But I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where the show goes from here. So yeah, that was episode 3. I really dug it. I'm really liking this show. I think the episodes have been really, really consistent. I feel like a lot of the MCU shows, it's been like, this was a really good episode. The rest were kind of like, ugh. So far, I think these have all been consistently good. It's very different to the other Marvel shows as well. It feels distinct. I'm enjoying it. It's entertaining. It's light and fun. And, you know, it still feels like there's a lot of world building. And I think it's just the casting and the relationships in this is what's really nailed it. So what happens next, I guess? We have to figure out what Damage Control want in general. It seems like they're just grabbing people with powers in general, enhanced individuals. Of course, they ran into Spider-Man in No Way Home. They're trying to hunt down Kamala. Are they hoping that the Jinn are going to help them? Are they going to arm the bad guys accidentally? We don't know. After that, what happens? I mean, Cameron, I assume, is going to, you know, get involved with Kamala and try to fight the Jinn. Is she going to go to Pakistan? Maybe. As for what they're getting them back to their own dimension, we've heard it was a big... it can be done, but it would possibly cause a big explosion. I'm not going to spoil something here, but I am going to say there's a clip that came out Disney Plus Day to promote the Marvel shows, where a location we are familiar with from the show so far, and you know there are quite a few locations we're familiar with so far, seems to explode. Which I really wish they hadn't put in the trailer, to be honest. But could that be where they're trying to go into a new dimension? I don't know. Who's going to show up now that we're at the halfway point? Where's it going to go? It's hard to tell, actually, because, you know, with most of them, it feels like there's an end point for a lot of the shows. Here, it's just make Miss Marvel a hero, and she's still kind of learning. So she's got a long way to go in just 3 episodes, but I don't think we're going to get to a satisfying end point where it's like, yes, now she can be a hero by herself, because, of course, the Marvels is coming up, and she's presumably going to take some lessons from Captain Marvel there. So we could even see Captain Marvel show up to help her kind of wrap things up, and then like, I'm going to take you under my wing and show you how to be a real hero, setting up the Marvels. Who knows? I don't know. Either way, that's Miss Marvel. That's the halfway point. That's the first 3 episodes. Sorry it took so long. I'm not sure I'm going to do weekly for this. I'll have to see how I feel after next week's episode, or I guess this week's episode by the time this drops. But either way, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please give it a like and please subscribe. I know I've been very quiet on the channel lately, but that's going to change. I have a lot of stuff coming up real soon. Either way, hope you enjoyed this. Let me know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. I've been your cult leader, Tom Pat. Please come back next time, because remember, I'll be watching. Take care.